The moment the cashier cleared her throat, I knew it was finally happening. I stood quietly near the entrance of the luxury mall boutique, pretending to be another shopper flipping through silk scarves. But my eyes were locked on Dayan, my ex-husband, looking entirely too proud for a man who once cried into a bowl of cold cereal when I left him. He stood there with his new fiancée, Simone, wrapped around his arm like a fresh accessory. She was laughing too loudly, tossing her hair too hard, clinging to him like she'd won something irreplaceable. Dayan loved it. He lived for an audience, especially when he thought he was upgrading. "Baby, get whatever you want," he boomed, waving the platinum credit card with a flourish. My credit card, the one still tied, quietly, strategically, to an account under my name. I didn't flinch. This moment wasn't an accident. It was a countdown finally reaching 0. The cashier ran the card once. Declined. Simone blinked. Dayan chuckled. "Nah, run it again." She ran it again. Declined. His smile faltered. Simone shifted. Maybe try the other card, babe?" Dayan's jaw tightened as he pulled out another one. Declined. And another. Declined. By the 4th attempt, people were openly watching. A couple whispered. Someone snickered. The cashier's voice trembled as she apologized, trying to spare him dignity he no longer deserved. My heart didn't race. My palms didn't sweat. I wasn't nervous or guilty, not anymore, because I knew exactly what those declined messages meant. The system was finally catching up to him. The audits, the disputes, the unauthorized charges, the lies he slid past me for years, the debt he built on my name, all the things I documented quietly during the marriage while he strutted around believing he was untouchable. He wasn't untouchable. He simply hadn't been touched yet. Simone stepped away from him, her face twisting with embarrassment. "Dayan, what's going on? I thought you said you were good. You told me—" "I am good," he snapped, louder than he meant to. His confidence started melting right there on the marble floor. I watched his shoulders curl inward as the whispering grew louder. He grabbed Simone's wrist, muttered something sharp, and stormed out of the store, tugging her behind him. She glanced back at me, just a stranger on the sidelines, silent, unbothered, invisible. If only she knew. As they disappeared, the air around me felt lighter. I wasn't shaking, I wasn't smug, I wasn't even angry. I was steady. Because embarrassment was never the point, humiliation was never the goal. The real victory wasn't the declined card, it was what came next. I stepped outside, letting the warm afternoon breeze wash over me as I walked to my car. Notifications pinged softly on my phone, alerts from the bank, alerts from my financial monitoring service, confirmations from the legal disputes I'd filed months ago. Everything was unfolding exactly as it needed to. As I unlocked my door, I saw another message appear. Account freeze initiated. Fraud review in progress. I smiled. Slow, small, controlled. Dayan thought the divorce gave him freedom. He thought flaunting a new woman proved he was winning. He thought leaving me meant the game was over. But what he never understood is that silence isn't weakness. Silence is preparation. And today was only the opening scene of his unraveling. What he didn't know at that moment, what nobody in that mall knew, was that the real damage wasn't the public embarrassment. It was the accountability I had set in motion. The kind that doesn't shout, the kind that doesn't warn, the kind that arrives precise, patient, and irreversible. As I started the engine, my phone vibrated again, this time with a name I didn't expect to see, a name I never wanted to see again. Simone. She was calling me, and that was when everything shifted. When Simone's name flashed across my screen, I didn't answer. Not because I was afraid, those days were gone, but because I knew people like her. People who believed proximity to a man like Dion meant power. People who didn't realize the pedestal he put them on was made of paper. I let it ring until it faded into silence. A minute later, a text popped up. "Please, can we talk? It's important." I stared at the message, not out of curiosity, but calculation. Simone wasn't reaching out to comfort me. She wasn't apologizing for flaunting him around like a shiny trophy. No, she needed something, and desperation from someone who once laughed behind my back, that was a new flavor of satisfaction. I didn't respond, not yet. Instead, I drove home, my hands steady on the wheel, the quiet hum of the engine grounding me. The sun had dipped low enough to paint the sky in orange streaks, the kind of sunset that feels like it's wiping the day clean. But inside me, nothing felt wiped away. Everything felt sharpened, because now the process had officially begun. Unauthorized charges, fraud flags, accounts frozen, investigations notified. Dion had spent years pretending his financial recklessness was managing the household. Translation, he used my credit while protecting his. He spent big to feel big, and I covered the fallout like a dutiful wife. But once I left, I cleaned up quietly. I separated my accounts. I tracked every cent. I spoke to legal aid. I documented years of deceit. And now it was all unfolding exactly as I planned. When I parked outside my townhouse, the porch light flicked on automatically, bathing the steps in soft gold. I stepped inside and locked the door behind me, the click echoing like punctuation, a reminder that I was safe, independent, unclaimed. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Simone. "Please, I swear I'm not trying to start anything. I just need to understand what's going on." Oh, baby. She didn't even know the half of it. I tossed the phone onto the couch and headed to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of peach ginger tea, my peace ritual, and sat at the table sorting through the file folders I'd labeled months ago. Spending, statements, unauthorized purchases, Dion pre-divorce, Dion post-divorce. Everything had a trail. Every trail led somewhere, and every somewhere was now in the hands of people who could actually do something about it. I sipped my tea slowly. Simone texted again. "I found something in his car. I don't know what to do." My eyebrow lifted, not out of concern, out of interest. I waited. 2 minutes passed. Another message arrived, this time with a photo. I enlarged it slowly, expecting something trivial, but instead, it was a screenshot of a bank letter addressed to Dion, stamped with bold red text. Urgent, account suspended, investigative review. Oh, so she'd found the first crack. Good. But then a second text vibrated through again. "He told me you did this, that you ruined his life, and honestly, I believe him." I leaned back, letting the absurdity roll off me. Simone thought I ruined his life? He ruined his life the moment he forged my signature on credit forms, the moment he hid statements, the moment he treated my credit score like his personal playground. I took a deep breath and finally typed my first reply. "Whatever you found, it's only the beginning." Her response came instantly. "What does that mean?" I typed back. "It means he's not the victim and you're not the prize." A long pause followed. My phone remained still. The silence felt strangely cinematic, like a scene that hadn't revealed its twist yet. Just when I thought she was done, another bubble appeared. "Can you meet me? I need to show you something. Please." I stared at those words. Meet her? Face to face? This woman who took my place like she was stepping into a spotlight I dimmed for her? I should have said no. I should have ignored her. But something in her tone, something off, stopped me. She wasn't just shaken, she was scared, and scared women don't lie well. I finished my tea, rinsed the mug, and grabbed my coat. Before stepping outside, I glanced once at the thick folder on my table, my safeguard, my history, my backbone. I didn't bring it. This meeting wasn't about documents, it was about information. I drove to the location she sent, a quiet street, empty parking lot, the glow of a closed cafe sign flickering overhead. When I pulled in, I saw her car parked crookedly like she rushed to stop. Simone stood beside it, arms wrapped around herself, pacing. Her caramel skin looked pale under the streetlight, and her long black hair hung limp, nothing like the polished curls she flaunted online. She looked rattled. The moment she saw me, she hurried forward. "Thank you for coming. I didn't know who else to call." Her voice trembled, her hand shook, and then she blurted, "Keisha, he's not who you think he is." I blinked slowly. "My dear, I know exactly who he is." "No," she whispered, stepping closer. "You don't, because what I found in his trunk, it wasn't just bank letters. It was something with your name on it." My heart didn't stop. It steadied, because I knew this was only the beginning of a darker truth, and whatever she found was about to change everything. For a moment, all I heard was the wind pushing dry leaves across the pavement. Simone stood in front of me trembling, clutching her purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "What do you mean something with my name on it?" I asked, my voice steady, too steady for the panic she clearly expected. She shook her head, breath uneven. "I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know who else to trust. Just look." She turned and opened her car door with clumsy fingers. The dome light flicked on, casting a weak glow over the interior. Her hands fumbled for a plastic bag in the passenger seat. She pulled it out, holding it like it contained something corrosive. "I found this under the lining in his trunk," she whispered. She handed me the bag. I didn't reach for it immediately. I watched her, studying the raw fear on her caramel skin, her wide brown eyes darting like prey sensing a predator. And suddenly, I knew. This wasn't about the credit card drama anymore. This wasn't about embarrassment or image. This was something deeper, darker. Finally, I opened the plastic bag. Inside was a small stack of envelopes, wrinkled, some torn open, some sealed, all of them addressed to me. My name, my old address, my handwriting on the return labels. Simone spoke rapidly. "I wasn't snooping, I swear. His trunk carpet was lifted up, and these were tucked underneath. I didn't know what they were, but when I saw your name..." I cut her off with a small gesture. "It's fine. Continue." She swallowed hard. "Keisha, none of these were mailed. He never sent them." My stomach tightened. These were letters I wrote to myself during the divorce, copies of dispute forms, requests for records, letters demanding explanations from creditors, letters notifying companies of fraud. Letters I had placed in the mailbox expecting them to travel to the right hands, except they never left. Dion had taken them, intercepted them, hidden them. "So that's why some companies never responded," I murmured. "He was controlling the narrative even after the divorce." Simone's eyes widened. "There's more." She reached back into her purse and pulled out a brown leather planner, Dion's planner, the same one he used religiously during our marriage, the one he guarded like a diary. She found this, too. For the first time, my pulse kicked up. "What's inside?" I asked. She flipped it open, hands shaking so badly I had to steady the pages. Inside were notes, dates, amounts, card numbers, PIN codes, my information, underlined, circled, repeated, and beside them, "Keep her in the dark. delete notifications, move balances to her account, redirect mail, control the story. Simone gagged like she'd been punched. Keisha, he's been planning this for years. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't careless. He was deliberate, strategic. He used you on purpose. I closed the planner slowly. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't crumble. I simply felt something inside me go still, like a lake freezing over, because I always suspected he was reckless. I didn't realize he was calculated. Simone's voice broke. There's one more thing. She reached back into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope, sealed with a strip of tape. This was tucked next to the spare tire. I didn't open it, I swear, but it has your name on the back. I thought maybe you should see it first. My fingers slipped under the tape and pulled it apart. Inside were photographs, dozens of them, all of me. Leaving my house, picking CJ up from daycare, walking into the grocery store, talking to Layla, sitting in my car, sleeping on the couch. Some taken from inside a car, some taken through bushes, some taken from angles too close for comfort. My breath stilled. My hands didn't shake. Simone touched her lips. I think he was watching you. No, I corrected her silently. He wasn't watching me. He was tracking me. He was monitoring me. He was preparing for something. Something he didn't want me to see until it was too late. Keisha, Simone whispered, you don't know how dangerous he really is. I looked up from the photos, meeting her frightened gaze. Oh, I do, I said softly. But what you don't understand is that Dion doesn't realize how dangerous I can be. Because these photos, this planner, these intercepted letters, they weren't just evidence of his lies, they were evidence of his obsession, evidence of intent, evidence that the man I once loved wasn't just irresponsible, he was unraveling, and something told me he hadn't hit the bottom yet. Simone stepped closer. So what do we do now? I gathered the envelopes, the planner, the photos. The full picture was forming, and it was darker than I imagined. We, I said quietly, don't do anything. Her eyes widened. What? Why? Because the next move, I whispered, is mine. But before she could speak, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You should have stayed out of it. My blood ran cold, not with fear, with clarity, because I wasn't the only one watching tonight. The hunter I thought I escaped was hunting again. The text sat on my screen like a breath on the back of my neck. You should have stayed out of it. I didn't show Simone right away, not because I was protecting her, but because I needed a second to understand what this meant. Dion didn't text like that. He was loud, emotional, petty. If he wanted to threaten me, he'd use too many words and too much punctuation. This was different. This was controlled. I locked my phone and slipped it into my coat pocket. Simone, I said evenly, I need you to listen to me carefully. She nodded fast, eyes glossy. Okay. You're going to go home, I continued. You're not going to confront him. You're not going to ask questions. You're not going to hint that you talked to me. You're going to act normal. Her mouth fell open. Normal? Keisha, I just showed you proof that he's been stalking you. I'm scared. So am I said softly, but fear makes people careless. And right now, careless is dangerous. She swallowed. What about all of this? She gestured to the bag of evidence in my arms. I'll handle it. Her voice cracked. I don't want him knowing I betrayed him. I looked at her, really looked at her. Simone, I said gently, you didn't betray him. He betrayed both of us. You just stopped lying for him. That landed. She nodded slowly, then whispered, Okay. I waited until she drove off before I moved. The parking lot was too quiet now. No cars, no music, no voices, just the hum of a distant highway and the echo of my own heartbeat. I got into my car, locked the doors, and sat there for a full minute without starting the engine. Then I called the one person who had told me years ago, if you ever feel unsafe, don't second guess yourself. Layla answered on the second ring. Hey, what's up? Layla, I said, I need you to listen and not interrupt. That alone made her go quiet. I told her everything. The mall, the declines, Simone, the planner, the photos, the letters, the text message. When I finished, there was silence on the line. Then Layla exhaled slowly and said, Keisha, this man is not just a liar, he's dangerous. I know. No, she said firmly, you suspected, now you know. I'm coming to you, tonight. Good, she replied without hesitation. Pack a bag, don't go home alone, and don't answer any unknown numbers. I hung up and started the car, but halfway down the street, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Another message. You think documents will save you. I pulled over. This time, I replied, I think the truth will. The response came faster than I expected. You won't like how this ends. My hands tightened on the wheel. I didn't respond again, because something had shifted inside me. For years, Dion controlled the chaos by making me doubt myself, by confusing me, by exhausting me. But now I had clarity. I drove straight to Layla's place and parked under a streetlight. She opened the door before I even knocked, pulled me into a hug that smelled like home and safety and peppermint oil. Inside, I laid everything out on her dining table. She stared at the photos, her jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitch. This ain't just stalking, she said quietly. This is premeditation. I know. And he intercepted your mail, too? That's federal. I know. She looked up at me. So what's the plan? I exhaled. The same thing I've been doing, but smarter. I pulled out my laptop and logged into my secure cloud folder, the one I'd never told Dion about, the one I'd created the day I decided silence would no longer protect me. I scanned everything, uploaded everything, stamped timestamps on everything. Then I sent a single email to my attorney. Subject line, urgent, evidence of fraud, stalking, and mail interference. Layla watched as I hit send. That it? She asked quietly. For tonight, I replied. But as I closed my laptop, my phone vibrated again. This time, it wasn't a text. It was a voicemail notification. Unknown number. I pressed play. Dion's voice filled the room. Not angry, not loud. Calm. Too calm. Keisha, he said softly, you always did think you were smarter than me, but you're playing a game you don't understand. Layla's face drained of color. I know you met with Simone. I know what she gave you, and I know where you are right now. My breath caught. Don't worry, he added almost kindly. I'm not coming tonight. I just wanted you to understand something. A pause. Then, you should have canceled the card sooner. The call ended. Layla whispered, Oh my God, how does he know where you are? I stared at my phone, because suddenly the photos made sense, the planner made sense, the letters made sense. He hadn't been reacting, he had been preparing. And now that the mask was slipping, I realized something terrifying. The credit card decline wasn't the trigger, it was the warning shot. And whatever Dion was planning next was going to force me to stop watching from a distance. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was panicking, but because my mind wouldn't stop arranging the facts into patterns I couldn't unsee. Dion hadn't just been watching me, he had been studying me. Layla locked every door and window, set her alarm system, then handed me one of her spare hoodies like armor. "You're staying here as long as you need," she said, firm, "and tomorrow we escalate." I nodded, sitting at her kitchen table with my laptop open, documents spread around me like a courtroom waiting to convene. Because fear was useless now, evidence wasn't. At 6:12 a.m., my attorney replied, "Keisha, this is serious. We need to involve law enforcement immediately." I'd expected that. What I hadn't expected was the second email that followed 5 minutes later, from a fraud investigator at the bank. "Ms. Turner, during our internal review, we've identified additional activity that may require your immediate attention." My chest tightened. Additional activity. I clicked the attachment. What stared back at me made my hands go cold. There were accounts I didn't recognize, loans I never approved, balances I never saw, all opened using my information, but with his phone number, his email, his mailing address. Dion hadn't just used my credit, he had built an entire parallel financial life on my identity, and he'd done it carefully, quietly, over years. Layla leaned over my shoulder, reading. "This man didn't just sabotage you," she said slowly. "He tried to erase you." "Yes," I replied, "and replace me with something he could control." My phone buzzed. Simone. I stared at her name longer this time before answering. "Keisha," she whispered the moment I picked up. "He knows I talked to you. He didn't say it, but I can tell. He keeps watching me like he's calculating something." "Are you safe right now?" I asked. "I think so, but he's different, calmer. That scares me." "Good," I said quietly. "Stay calm, don't confront him, and if he leaves, tell me." She hesitated. "What are you doing?" I looked at the mountain of proof in front of me. "I'm ending this." An hour later, I walked into the police station with a binder so thick it wouldn't close properly. Unauthorized financial activity, mail interference, stalking documentation, photographic surveillance, threatening messages, voicemails confirming knowledge of my location. The detective who met me, Detective Alvarez, didn't interrupt once as I spoke. When I finished, he leaned back slowly. "Miss Turner, this is not a civil dispute. This is criminal." Good, because I was done fighting quietly. By noon, a temporary protective order was in motion. By 2:30 p.m., law enforcement requested Dion come in for questioning. By 3:47 p.m., my phone rang again. Dion. I didn't answer. Instead, I listened to the voicemail. This time, the calm was gone. "You think you won? You think those papers scare me? You don't even know who you're dealing with. You always thought you were smarter, but you're not. You're just louder now." I deleted it because I already knew what he didn't. Noise wasn't my weapon. Documentation was. That evening, Simone texted me one sentence that confirmed everything. "He packed a bag. He left fast." I forwarded the message directly to Detective Alvarez. Minutes later, he called. He's running, which means he knows this isn't something he can talk his way out of. I exhaled for the first time all day. But relief didn't come, because running people do unpredictable things. Layla poured us wine and said softly, "You okay?" I nodded, but slowly. "I will be. But this isn't over yet." She raised an eyebrow. "Why?" Because as my phone lit up with another notification, this one from my credit monitoring service, I saw something new. A hard inquiry, just made from a lender I didn't recognize, under my name. My heart dropped. He wasn't just running, he was trying to burn everything on his way out. And that meant one thing. Dion wasn't finished using my identity. He was desperate, and desperate people don't stop. They escalate. The hard inquiry sat there on my screen like a fresh wound, time-stamped 10 minutes ago. Layla leaned in, squinting. What does that mean exactly? It means, I said slowly, he's trying to take out money in my name while he still thinks he has a window. My phone buzzed again, this time an alert from my credit monitoring service confirming it. Application pending, high risk flagged. I closed my eyes for a second, grounding myself. Panic was a luxury I didn't have. He's trying to drain what's left before the door slams shut, Layla fed. Yes, I replied, but he's too late. I picked up my phone and called the bank's fraud department directly, the number already memorized from weeks of preparation. I didn't stumble over my words. I didn't over-explain. I spoke with the calm precision of someone who knew the language of systems. Within 20 minutes, every remaining account was frozen. Every line of credit locked. Every inquiry flagged. When I hung up, Layla let out a long breath. That's it? For now, I said, but I knew better. Men like Dion didn't accept doors closing quietly. They kicked, they pounded, they tried windows next. My phone rang again. This time it wasn't Dion, it was Detective Alvarez. We attempted to locate your ex-husband, he said. His phone is off. His apartment is empty. I swallowed. He left the state, didn't he? Possibly, the detective replied, but there's something else. My chest tightened. What? He tried to open a short-term loan under your name using an online lender tied to a shell LLC. Layla muttered. Of course he did. That lender flagged it because of your earlier disputes, but here's the part that concerns me. I held my breath. The IP address used to submit the application wasn't his. Silence filled the room. What do you mean? I asked. It originated from a public terminal, a place where anonymity is easy. Layla's eyes widened. So he's not alone? No, the detective agreed, and that changes things. After the call ended, the room felt smaller, heavier. Who would help him? Layla asked. I didn't answer right away, because the truth had already surfaced in my mind. Someone who benefited from him staying afloat, someone whose lifestyle depended on his illusion of wealth, someone who had already proven they were comfortable with lies. Simone. I stared at my phone, then dialed her. She answered breathlessly. Keisha? I asked, did he contact you? She hesitated. Too long. He sent one message, she admitted. Just said he needed help, money, a place to lay low. And? I pressed. And I said no, I swear. I told him I couldn't. Did you give him anything? I pressed. No, I didn't. But Keisha, I think he used my laptop. I stepped away earlier. When I came back, some tabs were open I didn't recognize. There it was. Simone, I said evenly, I need you to turn off that laptop right now. Do not touch it again. Her voice trembled. Why? Because it may be evidence. She gasped. Oh my God. Listen to me, I continued. You didn't do anything wrong, but from this point forward, you need to document everything. Messages, calls, times, screenshots. I will, she whispered. I didn't sign up for this. Neither did I said softly. After I hung up, Layla sank into a chair. So now he's dragging her into it. No, I corrected. He already did. She's just realizing it now. The difference between us was timing. I had learned to prepare. Dion was still reacting. That night, as rain tapped against the windows, I sat quietly and reviewed my files again. Every step, every charge, every move he made after the divorce. A pattern emerged. Each escalation followed one thing: loss of control. First the card, then the accounts, then the investigation, now flight. which meant the next move wouldn't be financial, it would be personal. I looked up at Layla. If he can't use my money, she finished the sentence for me, he'll try to use your fear. I nodded, and right on cue, my phone lit up again. A new voicemail. Unknown number. I pressed play. Dion's voice was quieter now, strained. Keisha, you don't understand what you're doing. You're cutting off my air. You don't want this to go where it's going. I smiled, but there was no joy in it, because for the first time, he wasn't threatening, he was pleading. And that told me everything. The man who once strutted through a luxury mall promising the world was finally running out of places to hide. But desperate men don't disappear quietly. They make one last move. And I knew, deep in my bones, the next one would force me to face him directly. I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating against the nightstand. Not ringing, buzzing, the kind of vibration that means alerts, plural. I sat up, heart already alert, and reached for it. 3 notifications, all from different places. The first was from my bank. Account activity attempt blocked, additional security review initiated. The second was from my credit monitoring service. New address associated with your profile. Action required. And the third, that one came from an unknown number. A text. I just want to talk, face to face. No cops, no games. I stared at the screen until Lila stirred on the couch. Please tell me that's not him, she mumbled. It's him, I said quietly. She sat up immediately. Absolutely not. No, we are not doing this. He already knows he's boxed in, I replied. This is the part where he tries to rewrite the ending. Lila shook her head hard. Keisha, listen to yourself. This man stalked you. He intercepted your mail. He tried to steal your identity while running from the law. There is no talk. She was right. And still, I knew something she didn't. Men like Dion don't ask to talk unless they think they have something left to offer, or something left to threaten. My phone buzzed again. Another text. I know where you are. Lila jumped to her feet. Oh, hell no! I stood slowly, calm settling into my spine. He's bluffing, I said. If he really knew, he wouldn't need to say it. She crossed her arms, pacing. You don't know that. No, I agreed, but I know him. I typed one sentence and hit send. If you want to talk, it happens on my terms. The reply came instantly. Name them. I exhaled. Public place, cameras, daylight. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, fine. Lila looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Keisha, I'm not meeting him alone, I said, and I'm not meeting him without backup. I picked up my phone and dialed Detective Alvarez. When I explained, he didn't yell, he didn't scold, he sighed. He's trying to get ahead of the narrative, the detective said, but if he's asking to meet, that means he's scared. I want to hear what he thinks he can still control, I replied. There was a pause. All right, Alvarez said, but we do this clean, controlled. You don't deviate. An hour later, the plan was set. A cafe near the courthouse, outdoor seating, unmarked units nearby, audio recording active, witnesses everywhere. Lila insisted on coming anyway, sitting 2 tables away with sunglasses and an iced coffee she never touched. When Dion walked up, I almost didn't recognize him. The man who once filled rooms with noise now moved like he was carrying something heavy inside his chest. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes hollow, his confidence gone. He stopped when he saw me, swallowing hard. Keisha, he said quietly. I didn't stand, didn't smile, didn't flinch. Sit, I replied. He did. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he leaned forward, hands clasped like he was praying. "I never meant it to go this far," he said. I tilted my head. "You planned it for years. That's not accidental." His jaw tightened. "I did what I had to do." "For who?" I asked. "You?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "You don't understand the pressure I was under." I laughed softly. That startled him. "Dion, you don't get to talk about pressure. You lived comfortably while I cleaned up your messes. You spent freely while I stayed up nights fixing my credit. You walked away while I rebuilt everything you tried to burn." His eyes flicked around nervously. "You've got people watching me." "You've always had people watching you," I replied. "You just ignored them because I was quiet." He leaned in. "You can still stop this." I looked at him, really looked. "This?" I asked. "This is you facing consequences." He shook his head hard. "If you keep pushing, things are going to come out. About you, about us." There it was, the last card. I smiled. "Go ahead," I said. "Say it." His lips parted, then closed, because he had nothing. No leverage, no secrets, no power. Only fear. He leaned back slowly, defeat settling into his shoulders. "I just wanted to win," he muttered. "You did," I replied calmly, "for a while." I stood up, but this isn't a competition anymore. As I walked away, my phone buzzed. A message from Detective Alvarez. "We've got him." I didn't look back because the man sitting at that cafe table wasn't my problem anymore. But something told me this wasn't the end. It was the moment before the final truth surfaced. And when it did, it would change everything. I didn't feel relief walking away from that cafe. I felt watched. Not in the obvious way, not the way Dion used to stare when he thought he owned me. This was different, subtler, like the air itself had shifted after that meeting, carrying something unfinished with it. Layla slid into the passenger seat the moment I reached my car. "I don't like that," she said, fastening her seatbelt with sharp clicks. "I don't like his face, I don't like his tone, and I really don't like that he looked calm at the end." "He wasn't calm," I replied, starting the engine. "He was cornered." "That's worse," she muttered. By the time I got home, Detective Alvarez had already left 2 voicemails. I listened to them in order, standing in my kitchen with my coat still on. "Miss Turner, we picked him up on an outstanding warrant tied to identity fraud and interstate financial misuse." Pause. "However, there's a development." That second voicemail made my chest tighten. "During the arrest, Mr. King requested legal counsel immediately. He claims he has information relevant to another ongoing investigation and is asking for a deal." A deal. I sank into a chair. Men like Dion didn't suddenly grow consciences. They bargained when they thought they could trade damage for mercy. Layla leaned against the counter. "What kind of investigation?" "I don't know yet," I said, "but it explains why he wasn't begging. He thinks he still has currency." My phone buzzed again, this time an email from my attorney marked urgent. "Keisha, law enforcement contacted me. Dion has implicated a third party in exchange for reduced charges. The name he provided is not unfamiliar." I swallowed. Not unfamiliar. "Who?" Layla asked, reading my face. Before I could answer, another email came through, this one forwarded from the investigator. One name bolded in the body. Marcus Hale. I felt my stomach drop. Marcus Hale wasn't just a name. He was the reason Dion had a business opportunity after the divorce, the man who introduced him to consulting work, the one who promised fast money, low risk, and clean paperwork, the one I warned Dion about. What does that mean? Layla asked quietly. It means, I said slowly, standing up slightly, this wasn't just Dion freelancing with my identity. I pulled up my files, cross-referencing transactions I hadn't focused on before. Payments routed through shell accounts, transfers that didn't end with Dion, they ended with Marcus. And suddenly, the intercepted mail, the urgency, the flight, the stalking, it all lined up. Dion wasn't the architect. He was the contractor. The real blueprint belonged to someone else. My phone rang again. Detective Alvarez. Miss Turner, we need you to come in. Mr. King is willing to provide testimony, but before we proceed, there's something you should know. I closed my eyes. What? He claims the documentation you turned in, your credit disputes, your timestamps, weren't supposed to exist. A chill ran through me. He says, Alvarez continued, that someone instructed him to clean up loose ends after the divorce, that someone believed you were manageable. I laughed once, sharp, humorless. They underestimated me. Yes, the detective agreed, but now they're nervous. After the call, the apartment felt too quiet. Layla broke it first. So what now? Now, I said slowly, I stop reacting. I grabbed my laptop and opened a new folder, not labeled with his name, not labeled with mine, just one word, origin. Because if Dion was willing to flip, it meant someone bigger was exposed, someone who didn't expect a quiet ex-wife to turn patience into a weapon. As I saved the first file, my phone lit up one last time for the night. Unknown number. A text. You should have taken the win and walked away. I stared at it, pulse steady, because I finally understood something. This story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about uncovering the truth someone else desperately wanted buried. And if they were reaching out now, it meant I was closer than I realized. I didn't respond to the message. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because silence was starting to work in my favor again. Whoever sent that text wasn't Dion. The tone was too composed, too detached. It didn't carry the emotional residue of a man losing control. It carried the impatience of someone who thought this chapter should have already been closed. Someone higher up. Someone who believed people like me stayed in their lane. I forwarded the message to Detective Alvarez and shut my phone off for the first time in weeks. I needed a few hours without interruptions, without reacting, so I could think like the people who thought they were smarter than me. Lila watched me pace the living room. "You're doing that thing again," she said. "What thing?" "That quiet thing," she replied, "where you look calm, but I know your brain is rearranging the universe." I gave a small smile. That's because it is. I sat down and opened the origin folder, pulling every transaction that didn't make sense when I first reviewed it. Payments routed through consulting firms, fees for services rendered with no deliverables, transfers broken into odd amounts, always under thresholds that triggered immediate alerts. Marcus Hale's fingerprints were everywhere. He'd positioned himself as a fixer, the guy who helped people clean up financial messes, the one who knew loopholes, the one who convinced Dion that identity misuse was just temporary leverage. I remembered warning Dion about him. I remembered Dion laughing it off. I remembered being told I was too cautious. Now, caution was the only thing standing between me and total erasure. My attorney called just after sunset. "Keisha," she said, "you need to prepare yourself. If Dion testifies, Marcus won't go quietly. He has resources, lawyers, influence." "I'm aware," I replied. "And if he knows you're the source, he already does. That's why the text started." There was a pause on the line. "You're handling this well." "I'm done surviving. Now I'm documenting." That night, I received confirmation that Dion had officially agreed to cooperate. The next morning, subpoenas went out, and by noon, my name appeared quietly in an internal investigation tied to Marcus Hale's firm, not as a suspect, as a whistleblower. The irony didn't escape me. The woman everyone underestimated, the ex-wife they assumed would lick her wounds, the background character in someone else's story. I had become the point of origin. Late that evening, as rain streaked down my windows, my phone powered back on. One voicemail, unknown number. I listened. "This didn't have to happen," a man's voice said. Older, controlled, irritated. "You were given an exit. Now you're forcing a reckoning." I deleted the message because the reckoning had already started, and the closer it got, the more dangerous the truth was becoming. Somewhere out there, a man who never planned to be seen was realizing something terrifying. I wasn't walking away. I was walking straight toward the source. By the time the subpoenas went out, my name stopped being whispered. It started showing up. Not publicly, not yet, but in places where power doesn't like surprises. Legal offices, compliance departments, executive inboxes. The kind of places where people don't panic out loud, they panic quietly and start calculating exits. That's when the pressure changed. It wasn't threats anymore. It was persuasion. My attorney called mid-morning. "Keisha, I'm getting inquiries, not hostile ones, polite ones, requests for clarification, offers to resolve matters efficiently." I laughed once. "That's how you know it's real." "They're trying to contain damage," she said. "Specifically, they're trying to separate you from the narrative." Of course they were. Marcus Hale didn't want me painted as a victim who fought back. He wanted me framed as a complication, an anomaly, a paperwork problem. If they could shrink my story, they could shrink the consequences. But what they didn't understand was this. I didn't need sympathy. I didn't need validation. I didn't need revenge. I needed records. That afternoon, Detective Alvarez invited me in, not for questioning, but for context. I sat across from him in a small conference room while he slid a file toward me. Inside were financial flowcharts, names, shell companies, dates. Dion's testimony confirmed what we suspected, he said. Marcus Hale has been facilitating identity misuse for years, not just yours. I flipped a page. Other women, other names, other lives quietly destabilized. My stomach turned, not with shock, but recognition. "He targeted people who trusted him," I said softly. "People who stayed quiet." "Yes," Alvarez replied, "and people whose partners did the dirty work." I exhaled slowly. "So what happened now?" He leaned back. "Now we wait and see how far Marcus is willing to go to protect himself." The answer came faster than expected. That evening, my attorney forwarded me an email marked Confidential Settlement Discussion. It wasn't from Marcus directly, it was from his firm. No apology, no admission, just numbers. Large ones. Financial compensation, my attorney explained, in exchange for your withdrawal from cooperation. I stared at the screen. This was the part they never show in movies, the moment where silence has a price. Layla read over my shoulder. "Girl, that's a lot of money." "I know," I said. "Enough to erase stress, enough to rebuild comfort, enough to walk away." "And?" Layla asked carefully. "And if I take it," I said, "he keeps doing this to someone else." She nodded slowly. "So what are you thinking?" I closed my laptop. "I'm thinking," I said, "that he's desperate enough to buy my silence. And that means he's more exposed than he wants anyone to know." My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. One sentence this time. "You're making a mistake." I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it confirmed everything. I typed back my first response in days. You did too. Then I forwarded the settlement email directly to Detective Alvarez. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Miss Turner, thank you for that. It gives us leverage. For what? I asked. For a warrant, he replied. I stood at the window watching the city lights flicker on one by one. Marcus Hale thought money could clean this up. Dion thought manipulation could hide it. They were both wrong, because the truth doesn't disappear when you throw cash at it. The knock on my door came just after dawn. Not loud, not urgent, measured. The kind of knock that assumes you'll open it. I already knew who it was. Through the peephole, I saw 2 men in plain clothes and 1 woman holding a leather folder tight against her chest. Badges caught the early light for just a second, long enough to confirm what my body already felt. This was real now. I opened the door calmly. Miss Turner? The woman asked. Yes. I'm Special Agent Renee Lawson with the Financial Crimes Task Force. May we come in? I stepped aside without hesitation. They sat at my dining table, the same table where I once sorted receipts alone, wondering if any of this would ever matter. Now, every paper trail I'd preserved had weight, gravity, consequences. Agent Lawson opened the folder. We executed a warrant early this morning on Marcus Hale's office and 2 associated properties. I didn't react. I listened. We seized servers, financial records, and communication logs. Several of the shell companies you flagged were confirmed as conduits for identity misuse and wire fraud. Lila stood quietly by the counter, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Agent Lawson continued. We also recovered internal emails referencing you, specifically discussions about how to manage you after the divorce. My jaw tightened. Manage how? Lila asked bluntly. The agent met her eyes. Discrediting, intimidation, financial exhaustion. I exhaled slowly. So Dion wasn't improvising. He was executing. Yes, she replied. And when your documentation disrupted the plan, panic followed. She slid a printed email across the table. I recognized Marcus Hale's name immediately. The subject line read, R.E. Loose Ends. I read it once, then again. She's quieter than the others, assumes she'll fold if pressured. If not, stall, redirect, delay. I placed the paper back on the table with care. They thought I was manageable, I said quietly. Agent Lawson nodded. They were wrong. She closed the folder. Mr. Hale was taken into custody 3 hours ago. His legal team is already attempting damage control. Lila let out a breath she'd been holding. Good. But I didn't feel relief yet, because men like Marcus didn't collapse loudly. They squeezed on the way down. Has he said anything? I asked. Not directly, Agent Lawson replied, but he did request to know whether you were still cooperating. I smiled, not of triumph, but of clarity. Yes, I said, I am. After they left, the apartment felt strangely quiet. No buzzing phone, no threats, no texts, just space. I poured myself coffee and sat by the window, watching the city wake up. Cars moved, people rushed, life continued, indifferent to the battles happening behind closed doors. Lila broke the silence. Are you okay? I am now, I said, because something inside me had shifted. For years, I thought strength meant enduring quietly, holding everything together without complaint, carrying the weight so others wouldn't notice the cracks. But this taught me something else. Strength is documentation. Strength is patience. Strength is knowing when to stop absorbing damage and start redirecting it. That afternoon, my attorney called. They're backing off, she said. The settlement offer has been withdrawn. I laughed softly. Of course it has. They know it won't work anymore. Exactly. Because once the truth is seen by the right eyes, it can't be repackaged. That evening, as the sun dipped low, I checked my phone one last time. No missed calls, no unknown numbers, just one message from the credit bureau. All disputed accounts resolved, fraud markers permanently removed. I sat back and let myself breathe. Not because it was over, but because for the first time, the weight wasn't on my shoulders anymore. Tomorrow would bring court dates, testimony, headlines I might never read. But tonight I reclaimed something Marcus Hale never anticipated losing: control. And with it, my peace. The final consequences were already in motion, and nothing at all could stop what came next. The courtroom smelt like polished wood and old paper. It was quiet in the way places get when truth is about to be spoken out loud. I sat at the witness table with my hands folded, spine straight, heart steady. Across the room, Dion avoided my eyes. Marcus Hale didn't. He watched me with a look I recognize now. Not power, not confidence, but disbelief. He never imagined I'd make it this far. The prosecutor began simply: dates, documents, patterns. No dramatics, no embellishment, just facts stacked carefully on top of each other, brick by brick, until there was no room left for denial. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I talked about the credit cards, the unauthorized loans, the intercepted mail, the slow erosion of my financial identity. I explained how silence had been mistaken for weakness and how patience had been my greatest protection. The courtroom didn't gasp. It didn't buzz. It listened. Marcus's attorney tried to paint me as vindictive, emotional, a bitter ex-wife who couldn't move on. But the documents didn't argue. The timestamps didn't flinch. The records didn't lie. And when the judge asked one final question, "Miss Turner, why didn't you cancel the card immediately?" I answered honestly, because I needed him to believe he was still in control. The silence that followed felt like air rushing into a sealed room. In the weeks that followed, the outcomes became official. Marcus Hale's firm was dismantled. Multiple investigations expanded. Other women came forward. Dion accepted a plea deal that included restitution and criminal penalties. The man who once flaunted luxury learned what it meant to live without access, without image, without lies to prop him up. As for me, I didn't celebrate loudly. I closed accounts, I rebuilt carefully, I slept deeply for the first time in years. I moved into a smaller place with bigger windows. I learned to enjoy my quiet mornings. I trusted my instincts without apologizing for them. And sometimes, when I pass a mall or see a flashy post online, I smile, not because of what I took from him, but because of what I reclaimed for myself. My name, my credit, my peace. I learned that the most powerful revenge isn't loud or dramatic. It's precise, it's patient, and it leaves no room for denial. If you learned something new from my life story, please like this video, subscribe to join our community for more stories like mine, and comment down below where you're watching this video from. I'd truly love to know.